Okay, so we're going to be focusing on the first 6 weeks of the academic term, and before we start looking at in the classroom as practitioners, we're going to be focusing a little bit on the learner. So I've got my little stick man here, and what we want to think about is the baggage this learner's bringing in before they even step foot into the classroom. So some of these baggage items might be things like the COVID-19 pandemic. So I read a paper the other day that said between 50 and 80% of young people came out of the pandemic with a mental health issue, particularly around depression and anxiety, and it was the largest spike in percentage of any age group, and that's going to be ongoing. So the learners that we're getting into college in the coming years will have gone through the pandemic at a different stage in their schooling life, so that's really important to remember as well. They may have responsibilities. So not just responsibilities of part-time jobs, keeping their room clean, walking the dog, but they might be a carer for someone. They may have younger siblings they have to look after. They may have their own medical condition they have to manage, and thinking about that when they're coming into the classroom. General anxiety. So as a new learner, someone that's coming to the college for the first time, that doesn't know anything, doesn't know anyone potentially, how are we helping to manage that general anxiety? How are we going to help the learner to feel supported? Scott, are there any other sort of baggage items you can think of that students might bring into the classroom with them?
Financial context,
Yes,
I think,
thank
is
you.
a big one that I perhaps didn't address as proactively as I might have done, particularly as at the time of recording being in the pinch that we all are.
Absolutely.
I think that's hitting a lot of the socio-economic demographic that we serve quite hard actually, so that's something our RAP tutors and the course owners we need to be more mindful of.
And something that just popped into my mind as well is what has happened to that student up until they get to your door. So actually, what's their morning been like? You know, we've all had that experience of everything going wrong in the morning and you get to work and you think, oh gosh, you kind of got to park it and get on with your job. But students aren't always emotionally intelligent enough to be able to do that. So thinking about what's happened with those students when they're coming into the classroom. Okay, so we're going to move on from having a look at the learner to looking at the classroom in particular. So this is the image that we've got at the moment. Thank you very much. We have the teacher normally at the front, and we have our learners coming in here. Scott, can you take me through some of the strategies that you use when you are looking at learners that are coming in late?
Coming in late. So in the past, I had, and I have, to be honest with you, for a long time, allowed them to just come in and sit where they needed to sit and not challenge them. Going back to your points about the context, the responsibilities, the morning, the finance, the family, the pressures. I didn't want to embarrass them in front of their peers because it could be any number of reasons, and I don't want to stop the momentum of what I'm doing either.
Yep.
So I allowed that to happen too many times though. I didn't challenge it enough is the truth. So this year I'm thinking more and more about how I might be able to ask my learner to stay outside to knock and wait outside the classroom.
Yep.
And to come in at an opportune moment. Only be 2 or 3 minutes waiting, but just that etiquette of waiting I think is really important. When they do come in late, I want my guys here to be doing their pre-starter, as it were. So we discussed this earlier on, Claire, in terms of having an image or provocative news article, or maybe it can be, you said about the matching games.
Yes, absolutely. So it can really be any task that you think fits within your curriculum. I love the idea of using news articles because we know that learners generally don't watch the news. Their news is normally via things like TikTok and Snapchat. So just getting to think about it, some subjects lend themselves really well to news articles. So travel and tourism, you know, your art, media, sport's a really good one. There's always something going on. So if I was teaching in the classroom at the moment and the Euros are on, I'd be having an image of the Euros up there. We'd be talking about, you know, women's rights within sport, how much they get paid. We have really good debates about that. So it's having something that you can get learners to be working on. The reason that's important is as the teacher, you can then be at the front of the room or front by the door greeting your students as they come in. And this is the key thing we want to have a look at in the first 6 weeks, is building those relationships. So learners, particularly in FE, research suggests that the most important thing you can do is learn their name and use their name. So don't just point in the general direction, and I've been guilty of it as a teacher because I struggle with names. And that's a really great way of doing it. So actually just being at the door and having those little conversations. So checking in with your learners.
Absolutely. So this is low maintenance, really. There's no real prep. It's, as you say,
Absolutely.
whether on the, a website, a news space, a video on socials, that will be my organic starter, as it were, pre-starter, as they're coming in. So when this learner comes in late, they will see they're missing out already. I want it to be so good and so dynamic, hopefully, and the live being there in person learning, that they feel almost apologetic coming in. They've got to wait there and get that nudge to come in and join in. In the past, I've gone and spoken to them really early and stopped the momentum of whatever my start was. I've done that too often, is the truth.
And we spoke a little bit more about this being such a great time to be able to do adaptation in the classroom. So this is how you get to know your learners. Once you've been at the door for a couple of minutes and your learners are in and they're doing their task, this is when you can then move your way around and go and speak to your learners. So we said that you might have learners over here that are particularly quiet. And for some reason in classrooms, they always sit together.
And often the furthest away from the
yes,
board as well.
Always. So quiet. You might have your chatty ones, in my opinion or my experience. They quite like to sit near the front because they love to have a chat with you.
Right.
So you might find that actually you do your news article with your chatty group because they love a talk. You might find that you do your matching game with your quiet group because you know that they would struggle a little bit more. For the first 6 weeks in particular, whilst you learn how your learners like to receive their information, that's a really good way of doing it. Obviously, as the year progresses, you want to get them out of always doing the same tasks, and you probably end up mixing them. So you could do mixing students together. You might want to let them sit where they want to sit whilst they're getting comfortable in the classroom, but you can decide that as a teacher.
So this bank of pre-starters and starter tasks and plenaries is something we're working on. If you need help making any pre-starters, starters or plenaries, pop into F102 or the Learning Hub, and the team are there to help you do that.